As the 2025 NFL Draft approaches, I want to go back in time and talk about some draft busts. Everybody loves the NFL Draft, and in today's video, I actually want to go through each and every AFC team in the NFL and talk about their biggest draft bust in the last 5 years. I'm also going to try to stick to the first round. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what topic I could cover next. Now let's get started and talk about the biggest first round busts from every AFC team over the last 5 years. Okay, so starting out with the Buffalo Bills, their biggest bust has been Kaiir Elam. The Bills have only had 3 first round picks in the last 5 seasons, and this will come down to Dalton Kincaid, Kaiir Elam, and Gregory Rousseau. All 3 are good players, and none are really bust at the moment, but Kaiir Elam is the least good of these players. He hasn't been able to keep up with other corners on Buffalo's roster, and a lot of Bills fans think he was a liability in coverage, and the reason why Buffalo lost to Kansas City in the playoffs. This past season was solid, but not all that great. He finished with a 70.2 overall grade from PFF, which is above average for an NFL corner, as he had 19 tackles, 18 catches allowed, and no interceptions. But he finished the year with only 305 total snaps played, which is 115th in the league. He was a backup corner the whole year, while the other 2 guys in Kincaid and Rousseau were starters. There's recently been some discussion about whether or not Buffalo plans on signing his 5th-year extension, with head coach Sean McDermott being non-committal on his extension, and the Panthers being rumored to trade for him. Not the biggest bust in the world, but definitely a little bit underwhelming. For the New York Jets, their biggest bust is Zach Wilson. The Jets have taken a lot of first-round players in the last few years, and a few of them haven't worked out, but the player who's worked out the least was definitely quarterback Zach Wilson. I've made a few videos on Zach over the last couple of years, and his career is definitely one of the most prominent bust stories of the last few seasons. After being a standout at BYU in 2020 and showcasing some really solid arm talent at his pro day, he shot up draft boards to the point where the Jets would take him number 2 overall in the 2021 draft. Zach ended up only playing a total of 34 games with the Jets, going just 12-21 as a starter and throwing for 6,300 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 25 picks before the Jets would trade him to the Broncos for the 2024 season, where he's been their 3rd-string quarterback. They traded a 7th-round pick to get him, and New York had to offer a 6th-round pick to sweeten the deal. He's been a huge bust so far, and he could turn it around, but it doesn't look very likely. Staying with quarterbacks, we got to go over to New England, and their biggest bust is Mac Jones. Mac Jones isn't like some of the other quarterbacks on this list, because a few years ago, I wouldn't have even thought of him as a bust. He was a surprise 1st-round pick out of Alabama, going to Bill Belichick and the Patriots in the 2021 draft. A lot of people thought they were going to go from one Tom Brady to another. After 1 season, it kind of looked that way. He helped lead the Patriots to a 10-7 record and a 1st-round playoff appearance. He threw for 3,800 yards and 22 touchdowns, but the wheels fell off after that. He went 6-8 as a starter in 2022, and then just 2-9 in 2023. Most of that had to do with New England's absolutely terrible offensive coordinators, but he threw for drastically less yards and touchdowns in both of those seasons as well, showing regression. The Patriots ended up trading him to Jacksonville to be a backup in 2024, where he started 7 games and went 2-5. There are some thoughts that the Titans might want to trade for him, but he really seems to have lost his grip on a starting role. For the Miami Dolphins, their biggest bust is Noah Igbenogany. Gosh, I hope I ended up saying that right. The Dolphins have whiffed on a handful of players in the 1st round over the last 5 years, but I had to choose Noah in this case. He was an athletic freak coming out of Auburn, with both of his parents being Nigerian sprinters. But he'd only played corner for 2 years after being converted from wide receiver, so he was considered a building project, especially since he entered the league at 20 years old. The Dolphins couldn't build him well enough, as he started 2 games in 2020, just 1 in 2021, and 2 again in 2022. He had just 1 interception and 5 deflections in 32 games, and the Dolphins would then trade him to Dallas in 2023, where the most notable thing he did was return a blocked field goal for a touchdown. He only played in 5 games as a backup and was a free agent for 2024, where he signed with the Commanders. As a Commander, Noah wasn't much of a contributor either, but it was his best season in the NFL yet, taking over from Mike Sanders still after an injury. He had a total of 55 tackles and 7 pass deflections, which were highs for his career. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, we have to talk about another quarterback, and that is Kenny Pickett. He was their 1st-round pick in 2022, as he had a long, winding career at the University of Pittsburgh, where he became an All-American in 2021, and he was the only 1st-round pick at QB in 2022. Many thought it was still a reach. His rookie season, he ended up starting 12 games, going 7-5, throwing for 2,400 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 9 picks. In 2023, he once again started 12 games and went 7-5. He threw for 2,000 yards with 6 touchdowns and 4 picks. That meant he ended up going 14-10 as a starter and threw for under 4,500 yards and 13 touchdowns with 13 picks. It was clear he was not the guy for the Steelers moving forward, and they traded him to the Eagles for the 2024 season. Kenny did not see much action in 2024 as the Eagles' backup, but he did go 1-0 in one start, throwing for 291 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception in 5 total games. He kneeled out the clock against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, but that was pretty much it. He probably won't be a starting quarterback in the near future. The Baltimore Ravens are another team that haven't really had a bad first-round pick in the last few years, so I have to pick a player that's just not as good instead of a bust, and that player is Rashad Bateman. He was a really high-profile receiver coming out of Minnesota, and he was part of the 2021 draft class. It was enough for the Ravens to take him with the 27th overall pick, but he'd been injured his junior year before the draft, so there were some question marks about him. His rookie year, he injured himself before the season started and was actually put on IR, but he made the roster. He finished his first year with 515 yards and 1 touchdown. He had 285 yards and 2 touchdowns in his first 6 games in 2022, but after missing so much time due to injury, 2024 was the first season he was actually healthy. He started 14 of 17 games with 756 yards and 9 touchdowns. Despite being extended, he's never come close to 1,000 yards in a season and has not provided as good of output as other first-round picks like Patrick Queen, Odafe Oweh, or Kyle Hamilton. For the Cincinnati Bengals, they've also done pretty well, so they're another team that's hard to pick for, but I'll choose the worst player as opposed to a bust. For them, I chose Myles Murphy. After an 18.5 sack career at Clemson, there were thoughts he could be a solid edge rusher at the pro level, and the Bengals took him with a 28th overall pick in 2023. In 2 years with the Bengals, Myles hasn't started a single one. That's not entirely his fault, as the Bengals already have Trey Henderson, Joseph Asai, and Cam Sample in front of him. This pretty much leaves him to be defensive end number 4. He ended up having 3 sacks during his rookie season, but hasn't gotten to the quarterback since then. So far in his career, he has 40 total tackles and 4 TFLs in 30 career games. PFF ranked him 134th out of all edge rushers last year. He was 96th in total snaps, 118th in stops, and 82nd in total tackles. He just wasn't that big of a contributor. So the next team we need to talk about is the Cleveland Browns, as they've traded out of the first round each of the last 3 years, leaving them with only 2 first-round picks since 2020 in Jedrick Wills and Greg Newsome. I chose Wills even though he's been a solid enough player because Newsome was pretty good in 2023. Wills was a big part of Alabama's offensive line from 2017 to 19, and the Browns took him at the 10th overall pick in the 2020 draft. Sometimes it's hard to judge how good of an offensive lineman someone is by looking at stats, especially if they don't allow all that many sacks and are a starter on the line. He has had some injury issues with his shin, but last season, PFF ranked him 109th out of 141 eligible tackles with an overall grade of 52.5. He allowed 3 sacks but had 7 penalties and only played 245 snaps because of an injury. He only played in 8 games last season because of injury as well, and the best ability for an offensive lineman is availability, and Wills seems to be injured a lot. He's currently a free agent because the Browns picked up his 5th-year option last year, but didn't re-sign him for the upcoming year. For the Indianapolis Colts, it has to be Anthony Richardson, as so far he has been a bust. He was an athletic freak coming out of Florida in the 2023 NFL Draft, and the Colts took him with pick number 4 because of his big arm and huge athleticism. That could not be taught. He only managed to play in 4 games his rookie year, going 2-2 as a starter with 577 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 pick. He ended up getting hurt though and missed most of the season. He followed it up in 2024 with another shortened season, playing in just 11 games and going 6-5 as a starter. He threw for 1,800 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 12 picks, while also adding 6 rushing scores. He was also sacked 14 times and fumbled 9 times. There's been a lot of talk in Indianapolis about whether or not the Colts would try to keep Richardson or not, considering he was the 4th overall pick. They seem to have made their decision with the signing of Daniel Jones, who despite not being very good, is an established NFL quarterback. At the very least, there's a quarterback competition next year, and this is not what you want from a 3rd-year quarterback drafted 4th overall. For Jacksonville, we need to talk about Clavon Chasen. When Jacksonville took Chasen out of LSU, they loved his ceiling. He was a young player coming into the 2020 draft and had only played 3 years of college ball, but also had a torn ACL that forced him to miss his second season. He had finished his college career with just 9.5 sacks and 19 TFLs, and he was a project player, but the projection did look good. But when he got to Jacksonville, none of their coaches were able to develop him into a first-round talent, and his rookie year, he had 3 starts with 19 tackles and 1 sack. The next year in 2021, he had 8 starts with 31 tackles and a sack. He'd never start a game again for Jacksonville once they drafted Travon Walker, and Travon isn't that great of a first-round pick either, but he's better than Clavon. His last year of play was in 2023, and it was as a backup. He bounced around between the Panthers and Raiders in 2024, but didn't see the field with either team. For the Houston Texans, we need to talk about Kenyon Green. The Texans took Texas A&M tackle Kenyon Green with the 15th overall pick in 2022. He had started at guard as a freshman for the Aggies before they moved him into a tackle his junior season, where he was an All-American. But at just over 6'3", he was a better fit for guard, where the Texans eventually moved him. The problem was, despite him being so good as a guard in college, he just couldn't put it together in the NFL. He was a disaster as a rookie, earning a PFF grade of 37, which made him the worst starting guard in the entire league. He reportedly allowed 47 pressures and 4 sacks, when many guards don't let up that many sacks. He also had 12 penalties. The Texans kept him on the roster until 2023, when he suffered an injury and was put on IR. After not seeing much game time, they traded him to the Eagles for the upcoming season in exchange for CJ Gardner-Johnson. Kenyon had a high ceiling, but for whatever reason, the Texans couldn't get it out of him. He's still 23 though, so he has a future, but he has to get some good coaching at some point. Okay, so the biggest bust on the entire list has to be for the Tennessee Titans, who took Isaiah Wilson. He might be one of the biggest draft busts in NFL history because he only played 4 total snaps in the NFL and flamed out of the league so fast and so hard that he was out of the league entirely after just a season and a half. They ended up picking Wilson with the 29th overall pick out of Georgia, and there were some warning signs in college. He was a 2-year starter in 2018 and 19, but was still very raw and declared 2 years early. He was listed at 350 pounds, but consistently weighed in as more than that, even at Georgia. He kept getting put on and off the IR list during the 2020 season, but he got in so much trouble during his rookie year that they traded him to the Dolphins before the next season could start. He was on the team for 3 days before the Dolphins cut him too, and he spent a few months with the Giants before they cut him at the end of the 2021 season. Up next, we need to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and their pick of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I had to choose between Felix Ozuma and Edward-Helaire, and I went with CEH because of the guy they picked him over. They had taken him with the last pick of the 2020 draft over running backs like DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, and Cam Akers. He played in just 13 games his rookie year, rushing for 800 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he wasn't that bad. But he kept getting hurt. He had 500 yards and 4 touchdowns in 2021, 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in 2022, and 223 yards and 1 touchdown in 2023, while his playing time continued to decrease. The Chiefs ended up drafting Isaiah Pacheco in the 6th round of 2022, who immediately took over his job. They declined Clyde's 5th-year option and brought him back as a situational piece. He didn't play it down though. He ended up getting cut and signed with the Saints for the last few games of 2024, having 30 yards. Since then, he re-signed with the Saints as a situational back, and there aren't that many reasons to draft a running back in the 1st round anymore, and Clyde wasn't a good one to pick. The Las Vegas Raiders have had a lot of blunders in the draft, as I had to choose between Damon Arnette, Henry Ruggs, and Alex Leatherwood for the 1st round bust. I ended up going with Arnette. Leatherwood was just as bad of a player, and Henry Ruggs went to jail, but Arnette was both a bad player and went to jail. He was a 4-year starter at Ohio State, but not that many people considered him a 1st round talent, but the Raiders were in that weird period where they overdrafted a lot of players under Mike Mayock, and they took Arnette with the 19th pick. He spent most of 2020 on IR and only played in a few games as a backup in 2021 before he got sent to IR again and was released after he posted a video of himself having a weapon. He spent the rest of 2021 on the Dolphins practice squad, and no team signed him in 2022, and he spent 9 days on the Chiefs' future squad before he was released and ended up getting arrested again. His last chance at playing football came with the Houston Roughnecks in the UFL, where he'll once again play this season. The Denver Broncos have had 3 first-round picks over the last 5 years, as you had Bo Nix, who's currently their starting quarterback and was a candidate for Rookie of the Year, and then Pat Surtain II, who's already one of the best corners in the league, and then Jerry Jeudy, who was pretty good this last year, but not for the Broncos. Out of the 3 guys they had, I had to go with Jerry, because as a Bronco, he wasn't really all that special. He ended up becoming one of the better receivers in college as he won the Blitnikoff in 2018 and was a 2-time All-American. He was supposed to become the guy in Denver, and his rookie year was promising. He had 856 yards and 3 touchdowns. But in 2021, he was a disappointment as he would injure his ankle in week 1 and played in 10 total games. He had just under 500 yards and no touchdowns. In 2022, he did get back on track though, with 972 yards and 6 touchdowns. After being inconsistent again in 2023, he ended up being traded to Cleveland, where he had a career-high 1,200 yards and 4 scores. Finally, for the Los Angeles Chargers, their last few first-round picks are Justin Herbert, Rashawn Slater, Zion Johnson, Quentin Johnston, and Joe Alt. All of them are high-level starters except for Quentin, as they drafted him with the 21st pick in the 2023 draft out of TCU. He was a great receiver for the Frogs, using his 6'4" frame to dominate the Big 12 for a couple of years. His last year, he had 60 passes for 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns, and helped TCU reach the title game. When he got to Los Angeles, there were hopes he'd be able to step in as a game changer for Herbert and to keep up with the rest of the division. But Johnston didn't immediately translate, having just 400 yards and 2 touchdowns in 16 games. He did improve in 2024 with Keenan Allen gone, as he had 700 yards and 8 touchdowns, but it's not near his college production. It's a stretch to call him a bust by any means, but he's definitely been a little bit underwhelming. He's technically the worst player the Chargers have taken, but honestly, in retrospect, my rules and standards probably could have been changed here as the biggest bust in recent memory, instead of putting a cap on it in 2020. Who knows though, but what do you guys think? What did I get right and wrong? Should I do this for the NFC? And what other topic should I do next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.